Brought to you by ExpressCare Health and Skin Center. Get in, get out, get better.
Hafa and welcome back. How much force is needed to break a bone? And how long does it take to heal? Tonight we are talking broken bones. Joining me now is ExpressCare's Dr. Jitka Lom. Welcome, Doc.
Hi, Jolene.
All right, now bones are the hardest part of our bodies.
Absolutely.
So can you share with us how much force is actually needed to break a bone? Because kids seem to break their bones like all the time.
And that's a great point. Kids' bones, of course, are much softer than adult bones, and they're much thinner. So the force that's required to break a bone depends on the bone. Our strongest bone in our body is our femur or our thigh bone. To break that one, you need tremendous force, like in a car accident or tremendous, blow to it, which is another thing. If you have a lot of padding, if you're a little chubby and you've got padding or a lot of muscle, then it's harder to break your bones. Also, the object that's breaking your bone, if it's basically you're falling or whether you're being hit with something very blunt or something very sharp, that makes a difference to how easy it is to break your bone. But most of us break bones when we fall. And so for the force of the fall depends again on your weight and how fast you've been traveling. So that's why car accidents. So it's really hard to tell you exactly how much force it takes to break any bone, except to say that bone has, for an adult, bone has the same strength as low-grade steel. So it's very strong.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, low-grade steel. You're all women
made
and
of
men
steel.
of steel.
That's awesome.
So what is the most common broken bone?
Yeah, 50% of broken bones are the arm or wrist, because when we fall, we break our fall with our hands. That's a reflex so that you don't hurt your face and your neck. So half of broken bones are the hand or the wrist, so the wrist or the forearm. And the rest of the broken bones are the toes, the feet, the ankles, and then the clavicle. In our body, the most common broken bone is our collarbone.
Ouch.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what is the difference between a break, a crack, and a fracture?
Yeah, that's a great question too. So they all mean a broken bone. So a fracture is just the medical term for a broken bone. A crack, we use it in lay terms to mean that the bone has not been moved out of place. It's just a crack in the bone, but not a shift in the bone. We call that displacement. So sometimes people will say, think of a broken bone as something that's been displaced or it's out of place.
Okay. Now, what is a green stick fracture?
Okay, so that is when you mentioned the children's bones are still forming, and so they're kind of soft. So when children break a bone on the x-ray, you don't always see a crack or like two bones separated from each other. You may just see a bend in the bone and a little bit of thinning on one side of it. So we call that green stick, just like when you have a piece of wood that's green, it's a young piece of wood and you bend it. You may just have some tiny little breaks on one surface. It's still a broken bone, it still needs a cast and all of that, but on an x-ray you won't see a crack right through it or a shift in the two pieces of the bone.
Oh wow, okay. Now, another type of fracture is a stress fracture. We hear that like breaking bones over stress. No, but seriously, what is a stress fracture?
A stress fracture occurs on a long bone usually. The shin bones are the most common ones. From repetitive strain as in running, jumping, athletes tend to get stress fractures. You can have other bones get stress fractures, but those are the most common ones. So on an x-ray, it won't look like a crack right through the bone. Again, the bones are not moved out of place, the two ends of the bone. You'll see just a little bit of a whiter area. Bones look white on x-rays because they're solid. And so it'll look a little bit whiter, and we can usually actually see it on a bone scan.
Okay. Now you mentioned x-rays. Now can all breaks be seen on an x-ray, or are some hidden? Like, can you break within the bone and just not see it?
Yes, actually. You can have, so if you fall, let's say, and you think, oh, this hurts so much, it must be broken. You get an x-ray, and at that moment, you can't see the crack. About 10 days later, you can repeat the x-ray and see whether that is more visible, because at that point, the bone is trying to knit, And when the bone knits, it becomes a little thicker in that area. So the X-ray will show again a little bit whiter in that area where the fracture occurred. Sometimes though, even with repeated X-rays, you still don't see the broken bone, and that's where a bone scan comes into place, where they inject some material which then settles in the bone, and then you can see it on the special film.
Oh, wow, okay. Now, what exactly is a clean break?
So when we talk about broken bones, they can either be in line, or they can, and which is alignment, and then they can also be a clean break, meaning there's just two pieces, or what we call comminuted, meaning that it's got a whole bunch of broken pieces. So if you think of a dish that you break, and you break it and it's just two pieces of the dish versus lots of shards.
That's a clean break, all right. Now, more with Dr. Lom into